Hi, everybody. My name is Ruth Sternberg. I'm a career navigation coach, and I work with job seekers to help you sell your value to an employer so that you can get an interview and hopefully get an offer. I've been doing a series of interviews with career professionals, job seekers, and other people in the community to give you some advice to help you find a job. And today I'm talking with Michelle Batt. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Michelle's been in HR for 14 years, has worked for different organizations, and really has a lot of good advice for you about how to approach your resume in particular. And I thought we would talk a little bit about that today. Just say a few words about yourself and your background.
Okay. Well, I am currently the Director of Human Resources for Impact Community Action in Columbus, Ohio. I have been there it'll be a year coming up very soon. I'm very excited to work in a nonprofit that helps those who are in need and looking to move towards self-sufficiency. So really enjoy where I'm at. I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in automotive, I've worked in floriculture, mostly healthcare though. And now, of course, I work in community action. Also, I have my own side business called Start HR. And it is a business that works with folks on their resume. So helping them to build their resume as well as interview coaching. I'm also going to be expanding out into doing some trainings for businesses on HR topics, on communication and leadership, those kinds of things. A personal side of me, I am the co-founder of Ember Women's Theater here in Columbus. So 4 years of that, and I've co-founded my women's theater, and been in theater for about 25 years. So that's kind of me, I suppose.
Yeah, Michelle knows a lot of people, been living in Central Ohio a long time. So
Yep.
good contact for you if you're living in Central Ohio or want to move here. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is what you look at when you look at a resume. And you guys don't use a tracking system, right? Yeah,
We don't. No.
right.
Mm-mm.
So a human is actually looking at your resume, which is great, right?
Yes.
So someone sends you a resume, and you pick it up, and what are you looking for?
So when I'm looking at a resume, I think the biggest thing that I'm looking for is connections to the actual role. So understanding that what is in the job description or what we're looking for in that particular role is potentially in the resume that I'm looking for. And I can tell you that when I'm looking at resumes, and sometimes I'll have 40 resumes, sometimes I'll have 80 resumes, sometimes I'll have 16 resumes. It just all depends. But when I'm looking at a resume, I will look at it between 20 to 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And that's really what I advise to my clients, to other folks, that is the average. So I want to see how your resume is connecting to that role. And a part of doing that, first of all, is really looking at the job description, but also looking at the organization. So there are a lot of words that mean one thing in one industry, or maybe what you've been in the past, that don't necessarily mean the same thing in the industry that you're applying for. So I think the most important thing really is what is the organizational culture? What do they do? And the best place to find that before you even apply is on their website. Go to their website, learn their website, all of those kinds of things. So when I'm looking at a resume, I'm going to look for those things. What is the job description? Who are we? What are we doing? And are there some things in your resume that are connecting in that way?
And I also think that there's no harm in talking to people who work there so that you can find out more about what they do.
Absolutely.
I know people who do informational interviewing at different organizations. There's not a role they're interested in, but they just want to know more about that industry. If someone, most people are pretty nice. They're not going to tell you, no, I'm not going to talk to you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's,
And the fact that you are interested in working there, I mean, you know, call folks, you know, network with folks on LinkedIn or on Facebook, you know, groups that you may be involved in. You know, the networking events I think are really key in saying, hey, do you know somebody here? Can you connect me? Can you do an introduction? I mean, introductions are huge. I just did an introduction for one of my very, very good friends that I work with in theater, who is going to be connecting with potentially a program that we're doing at work. And as soon as I found out we were doing this program, I said, oh, wow, she would be great to be able to be a connection for that. And so always be open to having those conversations and introducing yourself. I think there's a difference between introducing yourself, and I'll be very frank, and calling the human resources department 3 times because you haven't heard from them when you've applied your resume. So I
yeah,
think
and I
that,
think people need to know what actually goes on the other side, so that they can understand that there's a process, and it's not there's nothing wrong. Just relax, right?
well, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit because I
Okay.
that's really key. And when we get a job description or a job opening, obviously we prepare that, obviously we put that out. And depending upon, there's so many factors that you don't see, so many different factors. It may be a quick hire, depending upon the role. It may be a hire where we're looking, almost every role, they're looking at internal and external candidates, almost every role. And so, unless it's an entry level or something of that nature, but usually internal and external. You have a lot of interviews that are going on at that time. You're also looking at scheduling with managers, directors, possibly C-suite folks as we're moving down the road of interview process. It also takes a really long time for someone like myself or my HR coordinator, because we have 17 other things we're doing on top of recruiting.
Right.
In a lot of, you know, smaller organizations, thinking about that too. And when you're going to the website, looking at that, and sometimes it says, here is our team, or a little bit more about the organization. That helps to kind of understand how long it may take.
Right.
For a larger corporation, you're going to have a recruiter that just recruits. That's all they do. And some other folks don't do that. So the process really is, we go through the resumes, like I said, the 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and I'm gonna mark. I try to go through as many resumes as humanly possible quickly, and I mark who I like, and then I go back and I look at them again. And at that point, then I'm starting to connect to people. In some situations, I'm working, especially higher level situations, managers, directors, things like that. I am actually working with a director level person or a C-suite person who's also going to look at those resumes before I even call. So that time frame is, you know, sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we're going to call you. We're going to let you know to the best of your ability.
Still, it's okay. It's okay to check in once. I mean, it's been a
That's
week.
what I tell people.
Yeah,
That's what
just
I tell
say,
people is once is fine. You call me every week. It
yeah, I
starts
say just
good
send a
for
quick
you.
email. Just say, hi, Michelle. You know, not to bug you or anything. I just having, you know, it's been like about 10 days, and I just wanted to check in, see where you are in the process. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Just a very casual, you know, and that's it.
Right. And there's a big difference between the two of those, Ruth. And here's the thing. What that does, and I'm gonna tell you, that takes your name and it puts it to the front again. Because I may have seen you before, but maybe I didn't see something else. Now you've come into my email and I've read your email and I'm like, okay, so did I see this person? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I go back to my recruiting software, I look you up again, and I look at what your resume says. That's one more time I'm looking at your, maybe I haven't even seen your resume at all. But the other side of that, which I don't want to emphasize a whole lot, is if you continually are, like you said, calling or emailing or doing whatever, that tends to not then look good for you, because it's giving me kind of who you are a little bit. And so that may be a deterrent at times. So
No, definitely.
being strategic, I think, is key.
Yeah, and I tell people, think about if that were you and you were the one hiring someone, how would you want to be approached? Do you
Right.
want someone to call you all the time? And they're probably like, well, no. And I go, well, then you shouldn't do that. You know, it's just, it's, to me, it's common sense, but, and then you also were talking about, you were just talking about putting yourself to the top of the list again. So one of the things that you and I were just discussing before we started this interview was the whole idea of something to leave behind. That
Oh, yes. Yes, yes,
calls
yes.
you
Mhm.
for the interviewers. Talk about
So,
that.
so one of the things, and I wish that I had a visual because I would show it to you, but everybody has something different. You had said that, you recommend a yellow folder. I recommend a piece that has see-through. It just all depends on what you want to put together, but
And
always.
the field matters too. Yeah. So
Oh, for
the
sure. For
industry, right?
sure. Yeah. So what I think is, I think that you should actually leave a portfolio. And so what the portfolio should be is a connection to that role and all of your accomplishments and all of your work. And I wasn't sure if I had mentioned this earlier, but your accomplishments are key. One of the things that people forget about so many times are the things that they did and accomplished at their roles. And we're so busy saying, here's what I did. And you were mentioning this earlier, I was able to do a calendar, or I was able to do an annual budget, or I was able to do these things.
Yeah,
What
those are duties. Those are
those are
not
duties. Those are
accomplishments.
yeah, accomplishments we forget about because we don't feel comfortable in um, saying things that are really good about what we do. So we're not boasting ourselves, I guess is my point. And that's really what an accomplishment is. I was able to, so I always give, like, this is one of my examples. I've actually built 2 organizations, human resources department, when they had none. So I built it from the ground up for 2 different organizations. That's an accomplishment that is one of the first things on my resume. We want to see that. And a part of you bringing that to someone physically is through a portfolio, because what's going to happen is you're going to hand all of your information to them, your resume, your references. If you have trainings that you've done or have created, so whatever it is for your particular industry, certifications that you have, take a picture, copy that certification and put that in there, the most recent, obviously. And make sure, one of the other things that I recommend, I'm sure you do as well, is a writing sample. A writing sample is key as well to put that in, depending upon the role. If
Well,
writing
sure.
is part of what you're
Yeah.
doing, then they need to be able to see that. So leaving a portfolio or bringing a portfolio with you, and like I said, leaving it, because I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to give it to you, and then when I'm done with the interview, I'm going to take it back. You're
Oh, no, 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 no.
in
I
that
say
to leave it.
you make 5 copies, because
Right.
you're gonna leave them when you leave the interview.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did want to mention something else that you and I had discussed as well that kind of goes on in and maybe I'm going ahead of myself, but
All right.
it kind of goes on when we're going into an interview process. So when I'm interviewing someone, the part of the human resources director or human resources coordinator or recruiter, whoever it is to find, obviously, that person that's connecting to the job description and connecting to the organization. And when I say connecting to the organization, I'm talking about culture. So culture, I think, is really, indicative of what you're going to find in a first phone interview.
So let me ask you, what do you mean when you say culture? Everybody brings this up, but then few people bother to define what it means.
So really, culture for me are things that you believe in, values that you show within your role. And there will be questions, at least when you're interviewed by me, that I'm going to ask you that are going to tell me about how, if you're a supervisor, how do you treat your employees? What kind of employee are you? How do you work in the community? So your resume, if we go back to that, sorry, I'm flip-flopping a little bit, but one of the things that is very important in your resume that people also forget is community interaction. So if you have community experience, whether it's volunteering somewhere, whether it's like me and running your own theater company, that is just as important as the things on your resume, because I'm finding out about who you are and are the ways that you're working fitting with the culture that we have. Some of the key behaviors or core values could be things like, dignity and respect, or making sure that we're transparent and open communication. Are these things that I am finding out from you in some of the questions and conversation that I'm having? These are the cornerstones of how we treat each other. They're the cornerstones in how we communicate. They're the cornerstones in how we make policy. And they're the cornerstones in how we treat customers. This is culture. And every organization has a different culture. And honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that culture also is work style. It's how you what your approach is to getting a project done, and how are you in meetings, and are you a person who follows a lot of protocol like in a corporate environment, or are you a little bit more, I don't know, authentic? I don't know. That sort of stuff, because every work environment's different, right?
Absolutely. And every department's, every work environment is different. A culture as a whole organization, every department within that culture is also different. There are a lot of different folks. You may have an overall culture that is great and awesome. That particular departmental culture is a part of the larger one, but at the same time, they have some work things that they do that, we want to hear if that's kind of how you're working as well. So yes, I do agree with that.
Yes, and a lot of times if you don't get hired, sometimes it's not because you're not super, you have great accomplishments and you're great at the work. Sometimes it's just a perception that maybe you wouldn't be happy in that office because, maybe you're a rigidly organized person.
Right.
And a lot of projects that go on in that office are kind of, spontaneous, and there's a lot of things changing all the time. And then Michelle might go, "Oh God, I really like this person. I don't think she'd be happy here because she's going to get frustrated." It's that some of it is that kind of stuff,
That's how you find out about like fit. So the word, a lot of times, what is the fit? And I think that is what is really key as well, is does that person, fit with the culture or fit where that goes? And so unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen until, you find with some folks in some organizations, it doesn't happen until after the person is there. And that's detrimental not only to the organization, but also to the person. And so you want to be sure that is fit as well. And I would recommend asking those questions. So some of the best interviews I've had, you as the job seeker need to ask those questions of me, quote unquote, the me.
So what are some of the best questions you've gotten from job seekers that help?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of what would be, oh, that's a good one. I've had a lot of different ones. I'm trying to think right now, and I can't think of what they are, but
one of the things that I might
see if you have one, and maybe it'll spur me.
I spent a lot of years as a grant writer, and so one of the things that I would ask is, when you are deciding to go after a particular opportunity, how does that look in your office? How do you get organized for that opportunity? Who's involved? Who comes to the table? Is it just the writer, or do you have a group of people? How are you viewing that whole thing? because that tells you a lot.
Right, absolutely. Who is really involved in that decision making is going to be key. It's going to be key for you, the applicant, you know, as well as honestly, that person you're talking to being confident in who they're going to tell you. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you go into things and you're like, I don't really know who's supposed to be, and maybe this person's going to be signing off. And so if you have an answer for that question, that's, you know, and that means that whether it's the human resources department or the supervisor or whatever, they have a particular plan. The I'm trying to still think of a
I know
question
it's a tough
right
one.
now. I've had a lot of really difficult ones that I haven't been able to answer. Usually the one that I can't answer, because my job as an initial interview is really that culture piece, and looking at those initial things is, what is the day in the life of this job? That's the big question that they'll say, tell me what happens on a typical day. And usually what I say is, I can't really answer that question because I'm not entrenched in that role every single day, but I can tell you that in our organization, nothing is typical. And so,
Well, right. And that's a great answer, because
you know,
that person may suddenly have a reaction to that internally, like, oh, I don't know if I want to work someplace that's like not. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you need to know
sure,
yourself. You
sure,
absolutely need to know yourself.
sure,
So,
absolutely. And, you know, I think that, a lot of times, now that I'm thinking about it, Ruth, I think that the question that really gets me is if they've told me something particular about themselves that then they bring back as, do you see that as a deterrent? You know what I mean? And so that's a part of it in connecting with that particular position. Oh, I wasn't, you know, I took this time off to take care of my mom, or I don't really have a lot of this experience.
right.
Some of those are difficult. Oh, I know what one was. Which value, which core value do you believe is the hardest to fulfill for the organization?
Woo, what a question.
Okay.
Awesome question. Like,
I was like, all right. I just remembered that just now, and I was like, okay. Because just like we catch you off guard, you can catch us off guard too. And I really do, I don't advise crazy questions, because everybody's different. I'm pretty
right.
open. I like to have a conversation with my people. I don't like to have an interview where I'm going, okay, this question, okay, this. I don't like to do that. I think that's silly. But be challenging with those questions at times. You know, if there's something that you really need to have, I have a friend of mine who is looking for specific things in a specific type of role, in a specific type of organization. Great. Then be ready to ask those questions, because, you know, you don't want to have a dream role in a place that you don't want to work.
Well, right. And I tell people, yes, employers are shopping for someone to help them, but you
Right.
also are shopping for them. You are shopping.
Right.
Don't be
Right.
afraid. You know,
I'll even say that in an interview too.
and you know, I just want you watching this right now, understand that these are people like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine that interviewing someone can be just make you nervous just as much as being interviewed. And so you just relax a little bit and have a conversation. Easier said than done, but but that's kind of the
Absolutely.
idea, right? Right.
The best compliment, Ruth, that I get is when I get off the interview with folks. Do you have any other questions or anything I can help you with? Here's the process. And they'll say to me, thank you for having a conversation. Thank you for, you know, having laughs and asking me about me and all of those kinds of things. Because us as human resources professionals that are talking to you for the very first time, we're a representation of the organization. We also need to get to know you as well. So for me, I always like to have a conversation, because at the end of the day, whatever roboticness that would happen in just saying the questions isn't real life. It's not real life. It's not the conversation it's not what that person is bringing to the table. A conversation is going to get them to relax a little bit and have them be themselves. I want to know you when you come day 26.
Exactly.
Because day 1 is, got my perfect suit on, got my perfect dress on, got casual stuff on, and I'm doing everything right, and I'm talking to all the right people. Day 26, day 94, all of those days are the person I want to know on the first day.
Yes, and I want to, on behalf of job seekers everywhere, thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And
You're
I
welcome.
also, Michelle has a blog that she writes occasionally, so I'm gonna put some links up with this so
Thank
that you
you.
all can read what she
Thank
has to
you.
say, and then we'll have some other links up there as well if you want to talk with her further about any of this, or with me. I say don't ever be shy about asking for help from a coach or from a friend, from a contact, because that is really how it's done. It's about people,
Mm-hmm.
not about tracking systems. So try to remember that. At the end of the day, it's about people. So
It is about people always.
thank you, Michelle. This has been really great. And have a great rest of the day, and the same to all of you watching.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
Thank you.